Emily was 12 years old, and she loved books more than anything. She was quiet, polite, and always tried her best in school. Most people thought she was just shy, but there was more to it. Emily had a stutter. Words didn't always come out the way she wanted. Sometimes they got stuck. Sometimes they came out too slow. And when she was nervous, it only got worse. School wasn't easy for Emily, not because she didn't understand the lessons. She was actually very smart. It was the speaking part. Reading aloud, answering questions, even just saying here, during roll call felt like climbing a mountain. Some kids were kind, but others, they weren't. They whispered when she spoke. They giggled. One boy even copied her stutter in the hallway once. Emily had run to the bathroom and cried until the bell rang. But when she got home, everything felt different. Her mom, Sarah, always waited at the door with a warm hug and a soft voice. "You're strong, baby," she would say. "Your voice matters." Sarah had raised Emily alone since she was a baby. She worked long hours at a grocery store, but she never missed bedtime stories or speech therapy appointments. She believed in Emily even when Emily didn't believe in herself. Every night, Sarah helped her practice her words in front of the mirror. Some days were better than others, but through it all, Emily tried. She tried so hard, not for the kids at school, and definitely not for the teachers who never noticed, but for her mom. Because if her mom believed she was brave, maybe one day, Emily could believe it too. Emily liked most of her classes. Math was her favorite because numbers didn't judge her or rush her. But when it came to speaking, she always felt a heavy knot in her stomach. Her biggest challenge was Miss Carter, her language arts teacher. Miss Carter was strict and didn't have much patience. Whenever Emily tried to answer a question or read aloud, Miss Carter's eyes would narrow. Sometimes she would interrupt Emily mid-sentence or sigh loudly, as if Emily was wasting everyone's time. One day, Emily was called to read a poem in front of the class. Her hands trembled, and her voice shook. The words came out slow and halting. A few kids snickered. Miss Carter didn't say anything to stop them. Instead, she shook her head and said, "Try to keep up, Emily. We don't have all day." Emily felt tears burn behind her eyes. She wanted to disappear. At lunch, she sat alone, watching others talk and laugh. She wished she could join, but the fear of being made fun of held her back. Sometimes she wondered if things would ever get better. After school, she would tell her mom about the hard days. Sarah would listen carefully and remind her, "You are brave, you are not your stutter, and I'm proud of you no matter what." Even though school was tough, Emily still wanted to do her best. She didn't want to let the teasing or Miss Carter's coldness stop her. She wanted to be seen for who she really was, a smart, kind girl trying to find her voice. One Monday morning, the principal made an announcement that caught everyone's attention. There would be a special school assembly in a few days. The theme was courage, and a few students would be invited to give short speeches about what courage meant to them. When Miss Carter announced the list in class, Emily's heart stopped. Her name was on it. Emily felt frozen. She wanted to ask to be taken off, but when she looked at Miss Carter, there was a strange smile on the teacher's face, like she was enjoying Emily's fear. "You'll just have to get over it," Miss Carter said sharply. "This is a chance for you to practice." Emily tried to speak up, but the words caught in her throat. She thought about telling her mom, but she didn't want to disappoint her. Sarah always said, "You can do anything if you believe." The whole week before the assembly felt heavy on Emily's chest. She practiced her speech at home, trying to say every word clearly. But inside, the fear kept growing. What if she stuttered in front of everyone? What if people laughed? What if Miss Carter was right, and she just wasn't good enough? Even though she was scared, Emily knew she had to try. The day of the assembly arrived, and Emily's stomach was twisting in knots. She wore her best dress, the one her mom had picked out, but it did little to calm her nerves. Backstage, the room was full of buzzing students and teachers. Emily sat quietly, her hands clenched tight. She heard Miss Carter's voice nearby, sharp and cold. "Don't embarrass yourself," Miss Carter whispered just loud enough for Emily to hear. Emily's heart sank. She wanted to disappear. One by one, students stepped up to the microphone and spoke about courage. Some told stories about facing fears, some talked about helping others. When it was Emily's turn, the room grew quiet. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. Her legs felt like jelly, but she kept moving. The microphone felt heavy in her hand. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. She stuttered. She stumbled. The room was silent for a moment. Then some students snickered. Miss Carter sighed loudly and said into the microphone, "Maybe someone else should try." A few kids laughed. Emily's eyes filled with tears. She wanted to run away but stood frozen. Just when it seemed like the laughter would never stop, a strong voice rang out from the back. "That's enough." Everyone turned to see who had spoken. The room fell completely silent, as all eyes turned toward the back of the auditorium. Standing there was Emily's mom, Sarah. She had rushed to the school after hearing about the assembly, worried about how Emily would be treated. Sarah walked quickly down the aisle, her face full of determination. She took the microphone from the teacher's stand and spoke clearly, her voice strong but calm. "Emily is my daughter," she said. "She has worked harder than most kids I know. Every day she battles something many don't understand. Yet here she is, brave enough to stand in front of all of you." She looked around the room, locking eyes with Miss Carter. How can a teacher, someone who is supposed to guide and support children, be so cruel, mocking a child for something she can't control? The auditorium was quiet, the tension thick. Sarah shared stories of the nights Emily spent practicing her speech, the tears she held back, and the courage it took just to come here today. "I am proud of my daughter. And I expect this school to be a safe place for her and all children, no matter how they speak." Miss Carter's face turned red, but she said nothing. The principal appeared on stage, looking surprised and uncomfortable. The crowd was watching, waiting to see what would happen next. The principal stepped forward, his face serious. "Sarah, thank you for standing up for Emily," he said. "This behavior is unacceptable. Our school should be a place where every student feels safe and respected." He turned to Miss Carter. "We will be looking into this matter immediately." Miss Carter opened her mouth to speak, but quickly closed it when she saw the principal's stern expression. Some students who had laughed earlier looked down, ashamed. A few whispered quietly to each other, their faces full of regret. Suddenly a few teachers stood up and clapped softly. More joined in until the whole room echoed with applause for Sarah and Emily. Emily, still shaking but hopeful, felt tears run down her cheeks. The support from the crowd was more than she had ever expected. Sarah smiled warmly and gave Emily's hand a gentle squeeze. "You're not alone," she whispered. The principal promised that Emily would get extra help, and that the school would provide better training for teachers on how to support students with speech challenges. Miss Carter was quietly asked to step off the stage. No one saw her say a word on the way out. For the first time, Emily felt like maybe things were beginning to change. After the applause, Emily wiped her tears and took a deep breath. The microphone was still in front of her. Everyone was watching, waiting. Her heart pounded loudly. Her legs felt weak, but she knew this was her moment. She opened her mouth and started to speak. At first, the words came out slowly. She stuttered, but this time no one laughed. No one whispered. She felt the room's quiet support wrap around her like a warm blanket. With each sentence, her voice grew stronger. She spoke about courage, the kind it takes to keep trying, even when things are hard. She talked about how her mom believed in her, how she wanted to believe in herself too. By the time she finished, her voice was steady. She smiled shyly and looked down, overwhelmed. Then the room erupted with applause. People stood and clapped, some even cheering. Emily's mom rushed to her side and hugged her tightly. "You did it," Sarah said softly. "I'm so proud of you." Emily felt a new kind of strength inside her, a hope she had never known before. The fear hadn't disappeared completely, but she now knew she was not alone. She had found her voice. And this was just the beginning. After the assembly, things at school began to change. The principal and school board started an investigation into Miss Carter's behavior. They promised better support for students who needed extra help, especially those with speech challenges. Miss Carter was moved to a different position, where she wouldn't have to teach children directly. Emily began working with a new speech therapist, who was patient and kind. They practiced together every week, and Emily slowly grew more confident. At school, Emily made a new friend, Lily, who also had a quiet way of speaking but never judged. One day, a few weeks later, the principal announced another assembly. This time, Emily stood up and raised her hand to volunteer to speak. She walked to the microphone with a bright smile. The crowd was quiet and supportive. Emily took a deep breath and began to speak. Though her words still carried a slight stutter, her voice was strong and clear. She spoke about courage, not just the kind that shows on stage, but the kind people show every day by standing up for themselves and others. When she finished, the whole auditorium stood and cheered. Emily looked toward her mom in the front row. Sarah smiled back, eyes shining with pride. Emily knew there would still be hard days ahead. But now she was ready to face them with courage and the love of those who believed in her. The story of a girl who stuttered was no longer about fear. It was a story of strength and hope.